So welcome to the presentation. In this session, we will be talking about details, a lot of which you might not even actively notice. So the first thing is that our main characters are toys, and so they're really, really small, right? And so we see a lot of detail from their perspective that we don't necessarily see from a human perspective. So all of that detail is a really important tool to help draw you in as the audience into the character's point of view. So if we start with this first scene in the playground, this is the first time Woody and Bo get to see each other for the first time in over 10 years. And so the scene begins out in the open, and they are not able to talk to each other because of all these children that are running around and screaming. In building the set, we're really crafting the history of this playground. And so we're leaving in lots of this kind of evidence of human activity, such as how all this sand spills out onto the side after the children are playing in it, and all the sand that kind of gathers around the base. So if we take a closer look at this shot, for example, you'll notice that there are all these micro scratches on the glass, or there's this worn look of the rug, and there's all the graphic detail and aging on the silver in the back.
Since we're making a Toy Story film, it only feels appropriate to start with Woody and Buzz, since it kind of all started with them anyways. So if we zoom in and we focus on some details on their faces, you can notice that there's a lot of these little, what we call micro scratches, right, that kind of break up the specular quality, sort of that shine that's on their face. And that it's a pretty subtle detail, but it's there in order to kind of help convey that this is a plastic toy, but not necessarily a new plastic toy. Getting the material property is really only one part of the assignment. So while we start off seeing Bo Peep in her kind of iconic, pristine looking dress, the next time we see her, time has passed, right? And so we wanted to try to find a way to help the audience member from the first time we see her recognize that time had passed, and that she's clearly had to walk a very different path than Woody and Buzz over the last couple of years.
One of the things that I do is try to add that extra layer of detail that we kind of falls away because there's so much of it, and it's the graphics that make up our world. As a graphics team, we're presented with the problem of signage, illustrations, advertisements are all meant to draw your eye. So it has to be believable that someone would produce that to sell their product, yet it has to fall away so you're not looking at it and trying to read it. Got this pinball machine, like what's it going to be? He puts it in there, but we have to come up with the name, the illustration, and the art behind it. Story behind this, how we got going on it was we put a bunch of words in a hat, pieces of paper, presented it to our director, Josh Cooley. He said, draw out 2 pieces of paper. He pulls out Tiki and Party. So that's where we got the name for the pinball machine. When I was presented with this character, I wanted to make sure I did a backstory research on him, like where he came from, so we could get the feel for what his graphics were going to be. We knew he was from Canada, so I had a Canadian maple leaf, which lends itself to an explosion. His name's Duke Kaboom, with CA for Canada. So put it all together and came up with what I think is a believable representation of Canada's world's greatest stuntman.
Yeah, I mean, we really just we have the opportunity now that the technology's gotten so good to just really, to really push that visual aspect. And the audience is so sophisticated now. The quality of movies that are out there are just so high. It's just so high, and so we just really wanted to hit that bar and kind of make the whole scene come to life. And so we put a lot of effort into just making everything look super rich and super detailed.
It was also important as well as we work on the film to make sure that we tried to stay truthful to the Toy Story sort of visual language that's been established over those 24 years. Again, we've seen these characters and these sets in a lot of these places before, but we still wanted to maintain some truth to that visual language, so you have an anchor of what it used to look like versus kind of where we're at now. And again, it was definitely a lot of research and a lot of looking at our history and kind of also trying to make something new and unique and beautiful.
Why do people have to see Toy Story 4?
You gotta see it's a continuation of the journey, right? And I think that's what these movies are about. You're following along this journey, and if you've fallen in love with the characters like I think so many of us has, you have to know what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've been following these stories for 20 years now, and so it's it's the next chapter.